All right, Krystal, what are you taking a look at?
Well, dear viewer, I hope you will forgive me, and I hope I can forgive myself, because I've decided to present a hot take on AOC's Met Gala dress. I just can't keep my mouth shut, even when it is thoroughly advisable. So here it is, the good, the bad, and the ugly of AOC's Tax the Rich Met Gala dress. So let's start with the ugly here. That dress was ugly. Let me take a nothing special 90s wedding dress, stick some bright red letters across the backside. Honestly, what woman wants to have blood-stained red across their ass on a white dress? I will spare you the details, but my mind instantly flashed back to some very traumatic time of the month moments in high school. You also brought up Sagar. It looks very much like the Chick-fil-A eat more chicken situation. However, I will say AOC's dress was a million times better than whatever this monstrosity was. Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney showed up in the ugliest dress I have ever seen in my entire life in support, allegedly, of the Equal Rights Amendment, which of course failed 7 years before AOC was even born. So while Carolyn's gaudy lace gold, purple, and green dress with a giant sash or cape or something was totally hideous, it was also completely politically irrelevant. So you hobnobbed with elites, you embarrassed yourself, and you didn't even get a news cycle out of it. Well done here. On a rather more serious note, also ugly were the images of the servant class, masked up and anonymous in all black, catering to the political and cultural elite, who mostly went without masks, judging from the pictures. Glenn Greenwald and others rightly pointed this out. One group is intentionally invisible, vague, indistinct, intended to be unnoticed servants to the people who actually matter. The other, they're expressive, they're visible, they're photographed, they're memorialized. In fact, it's kind of the perfect metaphor for the class divide in America writ large. First of all, it is now commonly the practice in places without indoor masking requirements that the shopping classes, they can roam freely, they can make whatever pandemic protection choices suit them, while service workers are required to fully mask up for their very long shifts. Not so much for their own safety, but to make sure that the clients are comfortable. It all reminds me of an incredible scene from The White Lotus where hotel manager Armand instructs his new trainee on how to behave and how to treat their wealthy guests by being as generic as possible. He says, "The goal is to create for the guests an overall impression of vagueness that can be very satisfying, where they get everything they want, but they don't even know what they want or what day it is."
The goal is to disappear behind our masks as pleasant, interchangeable helpers. It's tropical kabuki.
All right, on to the good and the bad of the dress itself. So there's two possibilities here. Possibility number one, AOC put on a performative display of righteousness, cosplaying class politics for a wealthy cultural elite who are all too comfortable with her and her toothless approach to politics. Possibility number two, AOC weaponized her access to elite circles, forced an uncomfortable message in their faces, and successfully sparked a national conversation on a live issue, which is, of course, being debated right this very second. So, if it's option number one, it would be AOC at her absolute worst. A full embrace of the most biting critiques of her politics as totally establishment-friendly, with some more radical and pro-working class rhetorical flourishes. Someone who's lost her way, from the new member of Congress who sparked the wrath of Pelosi on day one by protesting with activists outside of her office. A former rogue who's been thoroughly tamed, doing a younger and cooler version of Carolyn Maloney's impotent calls for an ERA. Now, if it's option number two, it's actually AOC at her best. She's a backbench congresswoman, but she's young and she's pretty and she commands a social media army. And Lord, does that woman know how to drive a news cycle when she wants to. In order to do so, you gotta be controversial. You gotta make some segment of the population totally lose their minds. Mission accomplished. She forced our feckless news media to talk about taxing the rich instead of getting us into new wars or whatever they're on to today. Not only that, but culture, like it or not, is king. She transformed progressive taxation into a culture war topic that could be comfortably debated at the metaphorical water cooler, and that is no easy feat. Now, as we're saying here, that the very reason AOC is invited into these spaces is because she hasn't been much of an establishment or elite threat in recent months. She's just edgy enough to be fashionable. They expect her to wear the dress. They don't actually expect her to do anything about it. Associating with AOC, it gives the cultural elite the feel-goods of the activists without requiring them to, say, view their anonymous mass servants as actual human beings, and without fear that anything will fundamentally change. And I might add, there's certainly nothing threatening about the inaccessible college grad student language that AOC routinely leans into, which seems tailor-made to persuade as few people as possible. So which is it? The unsatisfying truth for the moment is that we're about to find out. AOC and other progressives, they've promised to use their leverage to demand an actually good reconciliation bill that would include climate, healthcare, a lot more, and yes, taxes on the rich. Are they actually going to do it? Well, I haven't seen any pushback on the rather disappointing tax proposal that came out of the House Ways and Means Committee. That proposal was described by the New York Times as leaving vast fortunes unscathed, preferring as it does to go after income rather than wealth. The wealthy are already well-versed in how to avoid the individual income tax rate. On the other hand, I have yet to see progressives more organized or more consistent than they have been this time around. They've actually done the work. They've secured a block, they're asserting their position consistently, and they deserve credit for that. It's a tactic that is made a lot easier, though, by the fact that today, Nancy Pelosi is on their side. There's little doubt, though, that at some point, that temporary alliance of convenience is going to break down, and that is when we're really going to find out. When things get hot and Pelosi gets pissed, will AOC and her allies actually stand in the fire? Will they sacrifice next year's Met Gala tickets and the other many perks of elite access? In weeks, if not days, we will all know the answer and the true meaning of the dress. Sagar, I saw Brianna say that the dress was basically like a Rorschach test.
Yes.
If you've already... Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.